Coming up, President Trump leaves Canada's G7 meeting and enters the Situation Room as Israeli forces take the fight to the heart of Iran's communication center. Where does the U.S. stand as the back and forth between Iran and Israel enters day 5? And the big beautiful bill overhaul. Senators debate what stays and what goes ahead of a looming July 4th deadline. Plus, race against time.
Most people think human trafficking is a developing nation thing, and it's here in the United States as well. So we just wanted to create an awareness project for this.
We take you inside the coast-to-coast mission to stamp out child trafficking. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation.
Growing questions tonight about the potential of the United States preparing to join Israel's war against Iran. Good evening and welcome to Faith Nation. I'm John Jessup.
And in Washington, I'm Jenna Browder. Unconditional surrender. That is the message from President Trump to the Iranian regime as the conflict with Israel intensifies.
President Trump has yet to announce any further involvement in the conflict, although today on Truth Social, he said that the United States knows where Iran's supreme leader is hiding and that while he's safe for now, he's a, quote, easy target. CBN national security correspondent Caitlin Burke joins us now. Caitlin, what are we hearing from the White House right now?
John, Jenna, in that same social media post you referenced, President Trump warned Iran not to target American soldiers and said his patience is wearing thin. We know he spent most of the afternoon in the Situation Room discussing the conflict after returning early from the G7 summit in Canada. He told reporters on Air Force One that he's not looking for a ceasefire, he's looking for something better.
What specifically is better than a ceasefire? What are you looking for here?
And then a real end, not a ceasefire. And then
So something that will be permanent.
or giving up entirely. That's okay too.
The president went on to reiterate that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. As Trump deliberates the U.S. response, the White House today sharing a message received from Mike Huckabee, the U.S. ambassador to Israel. Huckabee says that God spared the president in Butler, Pennsylvania, and that he's writing not to persuade Trump, but to encourage him. Referring to how Trump should respond in the Middle East, Huckabee says, quote, "I believe you will hear from heaven, and that voice is far more important than mine or anyone else's." Missile fire into Israel from Iran has continued throughout the day, and Homefront Command warned civilians it will no longer be able to provide a 15 to 30-minute warning ahead of those strikes. Meanwhile, the IDF reports taking out another top Iranian general, the regime's wartime chief of staff. Plus, the International Atomic Energy Agency announced today Israeli strikes on Iran's Natanz nuclear facility have officially damaged the harder-to-reach underground parts of the facility. And reports are coming in that Iran is urgently signaling that it wants to end the war and resume nuclear negotiations as long as the U.S. stays out of the fight. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he doesn't believe it. And earlier this morning, President Trump told reporters that Iran should have taken the deal he offered. And right now, he's, quote, not much in the mood to negotiate. John, Jenna.
All right, CBN national security correspondent Caitlin Burke. Thank you, Caitlin. Well, with that, let's bring in our expert panel to discuss. Jonathan Saya is a research analyst at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies.
And Dr. Susan Michael is the director of the American Christian Leaders for Israel and president of the International Christian Embassy in Jerusalem, USA. Welcome to both of you. Jonathan, to you first. The president says he is looking for a real end to the war. He also says the U.S. knows where the supreme leader is hiding, but doesn't want him killed for now. How do you see the situation unfolding, Jonathan? And do you think the U.S. might launch a direct attack on Iran? The German chancellor seemed to allude to that today.
So the main issue at hand during the negotiation era was the fact that the Islamic Republic was not willing to fully dismantle its nuclear program. So now with the help of Israeli strikes, those capabilities are now greatly affected. And much of it is destroyed, but it's not fully dismantled. Specifically, a site called Fordo is mostly underground. So targeting that would either require Iran to fully agree to dismantle, which they have not agreed to do so, or the use of American B-2 or B-52 bombers. So the only way to truly neutralize the Iranian nuclear threat would be at this point, because given the Israeli military campaign, we are at a point of no return, is to fully move forward with kinetically removing this threat.
Dr. Michael, I'd like to bring you in. Pointing to Ambassador Huckabee's message to President Trump, he was very deferential, saying that the president will hear from heaven how to act in the Middle East. What do you think of his message? What is he perhaps trying to intimate on how Trump should respond and handle this war?
Well, I think many of us are praying that President Trump has wisdom and makes the right decisions. And Ambassador Huckabee is one of those praying for that. And I think he just wanted to give the president freedom to make the decisions. But it seems that Trump is really moving in the right direction. And as Jonathan just said, they have not yet dismantled the nuclear program. And so the first choice is that the regime would fall. And then that would allow Western powers to go in and dismantle it themselves and remove it and do it that way. But if this regime keeps holding on, there are the B-2 bombers being put into place to take it out in a different way. And so we really hope that the regime would give up. And we appreciate that Trump has said he will only accept an unconditional surrender. And that's exactly the right stance to take.
Jonathan, do you think we could see this topple? The Iranian leaders, are they taking these calls seriously for, Netanyahu calling on the Iranian people to topple the regime? We've seen messages from inside Iran, people there, on the side of Israel. What do you think the resolve is there?
Absolutely. So we are in a very crucial moment where the people of Iran and Israelis are working against a common enemy. Now, whether Israel is directly pursuing regime change or not, that would be a fundamentally different strategy for them. So far, we have seen messaging towards the Iranian people, especially IDF in Persian has been very proactive recently. But whether they are coordinating specifically with protesters or paving the way for instance, a protest takeover of state broadcasting or things of that nature, we have not seen that yet. And when you mention specifically are Iranian leaders, quote unquote, ready, at this point, they've mostly been eliminated. So we're really dealing with Supreme Leader himself. And of course, he's increasingly in a paranoid situation, and it is very likely for him to sacrifice whatever he can to preserve his regime.
We've talked about the possibility of Israel assassinating the Supreme Leader, but Jonathan, would that be enough to trigger regime change?
So what you have to keep in mind is that the Islamic Republic as a whole has different pillars, and the Supreme Leader just happens to be one of them. The main issue at hand is the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, which Washington has designated as a terrorist group. They are more than just a military. They're not Iran's conventional army. They're an ideologically driven militia that operate beyond just the borders of Iran. And that would be the main challenge at hand. If you really were to pursue regime change, you would have to tackle that. But again, the coordination with the Iranian people would have to be very accurate and decisive at this stage of a war, because it would be unreasonable to expect the Iranians to take on the street as there are airstrikes happening across Tehran. And President Trump actually told them to evacuate the capital.
Susan, I'd like to ask you, International Christian Embassy Jerusalem has long advocated for strong support of Israel. So how should Christians approach this particular moment, especially as civilians on all sides are suffering? And we should note, from this administration to past administrations, there is a clear line of demarcation that they like to say between the regime and the people of Iran. And our reporting at CBN has talked a lot about Iranian Christians and a movement of just people being baptized in Iran. So how should we pray in this moment?
This is a very important question, because American Christians need to understand that Israel is on the front lines of our battle. We all hate war. Israel hates war. Every good-hearted person hates war. It's a terrible thing, and there's always collateral damage that is really regrettable. But sometimes war is necessary. And so we need to realize that Israel is fighting our war, because if Israel fell today, the Iranian regime would come after the United States. And if they had nuclear weapons, it would be a terrible thing. They consider us the big Satan, Israel's the small Satan. So Israel is fighting our war, and therefore they deserve our complete support. And as you know, we've made the point that this war is not with the people of Iran. It is with a regime that is dedicated to wiping Israel off the face of the earth and using nuclear weapons to do so. So we need to be very clear. We are on the side of the people of Iran. There are many good people there, and we want to see them set free from this evil, and that's oppressing them, as well as coming after Israel and the entire free world.
Jonathan, real quickly, do you want to talk about Iran's capabilities if the United States were to get involved in the war, whether they'd be able to strike back regionally or even impact here in the United States homeland?
They have threatened to do so. So their militias have threatened to target U.S. bases in the region. Their leaders have reiterated that threat. But what's important to keep in mind is that Israel has currently paved the way when it comes to taking out the air defense systems. So there definitely might be repercussions and there might be consequences, but Iran has always had a very tempered retaliation. So when President Trump took out in 2019 the head of the IRGC's Quds Force, Iran's retaliation was very tempered and constrained. So that's what we've seen so far from the Iranians themselves, as they're increasingly fragile both internally and externally.
Okay, Jonathan Saye and Dr. Susan Michael, both of you, thank you so much.
Well, in other news, a deadly night in Ukraine. Ukrainians are picking up the pieces in the wake of that deadly assault by Russia releasing a barrage of drone and missile strikes. Military officials in Ukraine say at least 10 people were killed and 157 injured after Russia launched more than 400 strikes on the capital, Kyiv. The attack lasted 9 hours, crumbling apartment buildings and sending residents scrambling into shelters. This marks the deadliest assault on that city in more than a year.
Coming up, President Trump's tax plan hits speed bumps in the Senate, with Republicans split over Medicaid cuts and tax breaks. What's at stake after this?
Well, welcome back. Senate Republicans are making major changes to President Trump's big, beautiful bill.
Yeah, and they could make it more challenging for House members to get this to the president's desk before the July 4th deadline. CBN's Michelle London joins us now from Capitol Hill with the latest details. London?
Well, in those revisions, the Senate Finance Committee focused on 4 top measures of this House-passed version, and that includes permanently extending those 2017 tax cuts, which are set to expire at year's end, and doing the same for the current $10,000 state and local or SALT deductible. That's a big difference from the House's call for a $40,000 deductible for Americans making $500,000 or less. And then they're slowing down instead of eliminating the Biden administration's clean energy taxes. And when it comes to Medicaid, far more aggressive cuts. By 2031, the Senate bill hopes to lower provider taxes from 6% down to 3.5%, while the House version lowered federal costs by freezing those taxes at current rates. Senate Republicans also expanded working requirements to include parents of older children in addition to childless adults. Missouri Senator Josh Hawley still wants no tax cuts to Medicaid, telling reporters Monday this is a major departure from the House bill. He's concerned the change would specifically hurt rural hospitals. Meanwhile, Democrats are calling some of these provisions a shameful transfer from working families to the ultra-rich. But here's what Senate Majority Leader John Thune had to say about that.
If the Democrats had their way at the end of the year, the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act would expire, and you would have the child tax credit cut in half for working families. So we're not only going to keep it from getting cut in half, we're going to increase it. You know, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime.
Does that survive?
Lower the tax on Social Security recipients. Yes, it will. Those are all things that were the president's priorities.
And this week, Senate Republicans hope to approve this bill, but there are some key sticking points that remain unresolved, which adds to the uncertainty of this bill making it to the president's desk by July 4th. John, Jenna.
All right, CBN Capitol Hill correspondent Michelle London. Thank you so much, Michelle. Well, turning now to the shooting of two lawmakers in Minnesota. The suspect, 57-year-old Vance Belter, is behind bars tonight facing federal murder charges that could carry the death penalty. Belter is accused of a shooting spree against Minnesota lawmakers. Posing as a police officer and wearing a mask, he went to their homes, allegedly killing State Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband, and wounding State Senator John Hoffman and his wife. Authorities say Belter drove to two other lawmakers' homes that night, but one was on vacation. Investigators found firearms and ammunition in his car, along with notebooks containing information about the victims. Police say he monitored at least one home and made detailed notes of who lived there and access points.
There's no exaggeration to say that his crimes are the stuff of nightmares.
Authorities say Belter had a list of more than 45 other federal and state elected officials, including abortion rights supporters. So far, they do not have a motive in the killings.
And before we go to break, it is Election Day in Virginia, and voters are making key decisions that will shape the state's political future. Democrat Abigail Spanberger and Republican Winsome Earl Sears are already set to face off for governor, guaranteeing Virginia will elect its first woman governor. And today, Democrats are also finalizing their nominees for lieutenant governor and attorney general. Analysts say these elections could offer early signs of how voters are responding to Donald Trump's return to the White House and what it could mean ahead of the 2026 midterms.
Coming up, racing across America, but the real finish line, saving children from human trafficking. The powerful story of Team Zoe, up next.
It is one of the world's toughest endurance challenges. In the 3,000-mile race across America, cyclists race coast to coast across 3 mountain ranges for a cause.
And as CBN Brody Carter reports, one of the teams is riding to rescue children trapped in human trafficking.
The race across America is one of the most grueling athletic challenges in the world. A non-stop transcontinental relay race stretching from Oceanside, California to Atlantic City, New Jersey. Each team can choose a cause to support and then raise money through sponsors, donors, and individual donations. Zoe International's choice is racing to fight child trafficking and bring hope to vulnerable children.
Most people think human trafficking is a developing nation thing, and it's here in the United States as well. So we just wanted to create an awareness project for this.
Founded in 2002, Zoe International operates in 5 countries, including the U.S., focused on preventing child trafficking, rescuing victims, and supporting long-term healing.
That's your relief coming, buddy. That's your relief coming.
Team Zoe's cycling effort began in 2018 as a small initiative to support the larger organization. Led by former detective Brad Ortenzi and his wife, both missionaries with Zoe International, the team has raced coast to coast 3 times, raising $500,000 in 2023 alone. Their mission: rescue, restore, and raise awareness.
The guys from their wrist to their elbow write the name of this girl on their elbow, and that's because in that cycling position, that name is still within your eyesight, and many times you just put your head down and you see that name, and that brings you back to the why.
8 cyclists and an extended support crew are pushing across 12 states to raise money and awareness for children trapped in human trafficking. Among them is Detective Kevin Quinter.
It's not traditionally what you think. It's not someone being kidnapped in a white van and being held chained to a room. It's not. It's very in depth of how psychologically they break people down with trauma.
Quinter spent years conducting undercover operations targeting child predators. He says his faith and the mission is what keeps him riding.
We get to ride across the beautiful country and see amazing sights and get to raise awareness and rescue kids, hopefully based on our funds. That's pretty lucky to do that, but it's not about us. And I think that's what's so cool about this group of people, selfless people that I've came in contact with.
Zoe's team, including professionals, missionaries, and businessmen like Pennsylvania Bank President Tom Jordan.
There's a spiritual side to this that, Satan is working against us. He's cheering against us. He's trying to put obstacles up So there's an emotional and spiritual side that I don't know if it does create some adversity or just challenge because you're weakening your mind when you're deprived of sleep or you're deprived or not deprived physically, but physically exhausted.
Zoe International, 6 days, 2 hours, 21 minutes. Great job.
This will be the team's 4th year pushing through desert sandstorms and beautiful mountain terrain while pulling sleepless nights, pursuing transformation over a trophy, riding for children they may never meet, but whose lives could be changed forever.
No matter what situation we're in, whether we're believers or those that don't know Jesus yet, or these kids or women that are entrapped in human trafficking, that there is a Savior that is just would do anything to rescue them and then to love on them.
Brody Carter, CBN News.
Thank you, Brody. And still ahead, a miraculous save on the soccer field. Next on Faith Nation.
Download the CBN News app, 24/7 news from a Christian perspective at home or on the road. One place for all of your news. Breaking news alerts. Set daily prayer goals and pray for news stories. Read the most important news and watch CBN News Channel live. CBN News, because truth matters. Go to cbnnewsapp.com to get the app today.
Finally tonight, some scary moments. A routine soccer game turned into a life and death situation and a miraculous recovery.
Yeah, it's all thanks to a group of good Samaritans on the sidelines who stepped in to save the coach's life. A high school soccer coach, Andrew Pilblad, was coaching a boys' soccer match in New York when he collapsed halfway through the game. Spectators immediately rushed to his aid to give him CPR. And while and calling for a defibrillator while they waited for an ambulance, Andrew was rushed to the ER where he remained for a week while doctors tried to figure out why he went into cardiac arrest. One thing he says he knows for sure, it is a miracle he's alive.
If it was a trained group of professionals, it'd be a miracle. The fact that it was just people. Without them, I wouldn't be here.
And Andrew says he hopes more people become CPR certified and plans to host a team bonding activity so they can all learn CPR together.
Talk about being at the right place at the right time.
Yeah, good on those spectators.
Absolutely, fast acting. Thanks so much for watching Faith Nation.
Have a great night.